I do believe that he is a big get in coming back because of the depth and stability that he provides to you at that position. But I'm not ready to say that he's better than Garrett Nussmeier. I see some people talking about Myles Brennan in the transfer portal, and I do believe that was a big get to return to school. As Jeff Marson said, it's amazing how many people are overlooking Myles Brennan. I don't know if he's overlooked as far as like the guys that are coming in and making an impact. But, I mean, this is an honest question. And I'd imagine that there was some type of discussion between Brian Kelly, maybe even Mike Denbrock, and the offensive staff and Myles Brennan. But you can't come out and promise somebody the job for the year, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure some type of commitment was made to Myles Brennan to give him every opportunity to start for LSU next season. But are we all sold that Brennan is going to be the every down quarterback for LSU all season? Because I'm not. And I do believe that he is a big get in coming back because of the depth and stability that he provides to you at that position. But I'm not ready to say that he's better than Garrett Nussmeier next season for the full year, right, of Nussmeier's second year in college football. I do believe that he is big for what LSU is doing right now as far as trying to stabilize and apply some veteran experience on the roster. He's enormous. But I'm not prepared to say, nor am I in the state of mind where I believe that Myles Brennan, A, is guaranteed to be the starter at LSU, and B, if he is, can hold the job for the entire season. Because I believe at some point, Nussmeier and his talent is going to rise to the top, and you're going to be stuck in a predicament where you say, what do? Do you play the veteran guy who has had some ups and downs, or do you play the young guy who has shown signs of being really, really good, but he's shown signs that he can make, some young player mistakes?
It feels like Brian Kelly, doesn't Myles Brennan fit more of what Brian Kelly wants to do at LSU, at least in his first year? I don't know if he wants to have to groom somebody like Nussmeier, who is so, I don't want to say mistake prone, but he's a play away from either throwing a touchdown or throwing an interception. And that doesn't seem like a play style that suits Brian Kelly. He's going to want Myles Brennan, who's kind of stable back there, able to, I want to say been there, done that, but that's not really the case because every time he gets out there, he gets hurt. But somebody that has a little bit more of a veteran presence, a little bit of a leadership role, he'll probably, want to start like leading workouts, do stuff like that. So it feels like Myles Brennan fits more of what Brian Kelly wants to do, at least in his first year. I agree.
And I agree with that assessment. I believe that, a senior, somebody who understands protecting the football, somebody who understands what the game plan is not going to take as many chances, as many gambles as a guy like Nussmeier would with the football. I think that very much suits who Brian Kelly is, especially in year one at LSU. I just don't know if Nussmeier has the type of talent that you can keep on the bench for a year and a half or 2 years in a row. I just don't. I don't know if he is. I don't think that he is that type of player. I think he's too good where you're going to have to at some point say and probably believe
he gives you the better chance to win.
Gives you the better chance to win.
But if it goes back to the conversation that Myles Brennan and Brian Kelly had to have, right? There had to be some sort of communication that made Myles Brennan feel like he didn't even really explore the transfer portal. I don't know where he would have gone. I don't know what his options were.
Well, Southern Miss was trending, right?
Right. So if you give him the option between LSU and Southern Miss and how much Myles Brennan loves LSU, you might not have had to guarantee the starting job, just the fact that he'll get reps in competition. He'll say it's an open competition. If you feel like you're better, you can come in and win the job because you're kind of playing into Myles Brennan's love for the Tigers, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you give him the opportunity, he's coming back.
No, I agree. I think that Myles Brennan loves being an LSU football player.
He always has. An LSU fan.
He's always loved being an LSU football player. He's always wanted to be an LSU football player. So I think if, the head football coach at LSU was urging and wanting him to come back, that he would very much, bite the bait.
Right.
In the sense of, right, like there's no guarantee that he's going to be the starting quarterback, but he loves LSU. And if LSU football says, hey, man, we need you, like the program needs you. Well, I don't know that Myles Brennan even, like if it's out of LSU and Southern Miss, is there really a choice?
Right.
It's
almost harder to go to Southern Miss for him. He's so set up in Baton Rouge.
Right.
Like he's engaged. Like his fiance is here. He's has access to the 50-yard line whenever he wants it. He, gets to kind of has carte blanche at Baton Rouge. If he goes to Southern Miss, he has 1 year to start over and kind of, I guess, re-ingratiate himself to Mississippi. And he's from there. But to have to go back and restart and have to do all that nonsense again, it's just not worth it probably in his mind.
Jonathan Millar, Nussmeier showed nothing last year that indicated he's ready to start. He's very erratic and not that accurate. Myles will start all season unless he's injured. Mark Cumby said Nuss is too green. Brian Burgess says, I don't see Nussmeier transferring, with a lot of some of the posts above that talking about Nussmeier on his way out. I agree with what Jonathan said, that Nussmeier didn't show anything last year that makes you say he's got to be the starter next year, but I do think that the reps that he got last season in that role that he was in, kind of a can't-lose situation, is something that he will grow from, an experience that he will take into this offseason and really learn a lot from. Whether or not he should have been redshirted or they should have played him in the bowl can all be debated, but he did play nearly 4 games of reps, or got action in nearly 4 games of play that I think really is going to help his offseason and maturity going into year 2. I think that you take those circumstances and scenarios that you saw against, teams like Arkansas when he played extended minutes, and while it wasn't by any means start to finish really good, there were high points, but there were a lot of low points. Stuff that you can coach off of, right? So I expect Nussmeier to take a step and a development in growth from year 1 to year 2. If it's enough to get him on the field is still to be debated. They still got to go through spring ball. They've got to go through fall camp. They've got to, go through a new coaching staff and really find their way and see who fits in on the field with what they want to do. I think Myles Brennan right now is quarterback 1. I don't think that that's up for discussion, but I do think when it goes onto the field and games start to be played, that, it's not going to be an open and shut case that Myles Brennan, in my opinion, is the starting quarterback every single week at LSU. I'm not ready to believe that. I hope he proves me wrong. He deserves this season. He deserves the chance to be the quarterback at LSU, and hopefully he can grasp that, keep a hold of it, and maintain it all year, because he deserves it. For everything that he's been through, as much love as he has for the university and the program, I hope that he succeeds in year 5 at LSU. I'm just not ready to believe and bet on that the time is now. And I'm not saying that Nussmeier has this talent that you got to keep off the field. I don't know if Brennan is good enough to solidify that position all year. And I wonder if Nussmeier is good enough to mature and grow into a quarterback that can handle the pressure of playing in the SEC in year 2 away, in year 2 of the program. I don't think that it's a closed door argument that, Brennan's the guy all year.
But you saw Nussmeier make a run at Max Johnson, and Max Johnson, for everything that he had to go through a little bit with the LSU offense and what they were trying to do, he was as steady as they come, essentially. Like, it didn't look as good as you maybe hoped, as maybe you wanted it to, but he was still able to kind of right the ship and play well, especially when he had Kayshawn. He was throwing for 300 yards a game. Like, he was throwing 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, Max Johnson was playing pretty well considering the circumstances. And then even the allure of what Garrett Nussmeier does, just because his game is so different than what the other, essentially what those other two have to offer. Myles Brennan and Max Johnson kind of play the same position, just Myles Brennan has a much stronger arm.
Yeah.
But the mobility factor, I would say Myles Brennan has less of that. And so Garrett Nussmeier almost becomes even more attractive because the mobility is just going to be such a stark contrast to what you're going to see at practice every day. And when you see where college football is headed, I mean, this is pretty obvious at this point. Having a guy that can move back there is kind of an ace in the hole at this point.